Private copper to 178. What's the address of the emergency?
Man, we have a friend that was over here and he just lit us damn. When he saw, God damn, I don't believe this shit.
Okay, tell me exactly what happened.
We sit on the balcony, he just ran in there and started dusting his fuck. He's alive. He's calling right now.
Is the spurting or pouring out, sir?
He's bleeding like a motherfucker.
Why did he do that, sir?
I don't even know, sir.
Before the incident, he came to me, and it's like, I don't know, it's like he needed a hand. So I was trying to reach out to him, and it's like he just had to leave that day.
As soon as I heard that somebody gave me a call, I was like, okay, something wrong. He didn't just do that for nothing. It's something involved. It's some drugs. It's something psychological. I knew that.
When you're going through a depressed time and then you're mixing that with drugs, you can take it to another level with that.
I really easily could have died that night, and that would have been that.
As I'm sure you heard yesterday, rapper Andre Johnson, aka Christ Bearer, cut off his own penis and then jumped off a second-floor balcony. Obviously, if it's not drugs, Johnson's mental health has to be evaluated, but I really don't know how you go on without your penis.
Yo, thanks, man. Damn. Might as well looking like Homer Simpson and shit.
You might have heard of me. Those who haven't, nice to meet you. Like I said, I'm God, aka Christ Bearer. So I'm gonna tell you exactly how it all began. You know, it's gonna be a journey. Let's go.
I was born on the east side of Long Beach, raised on the north side. The most poverty in Long Beach is on the east side, so I was from the roughest, downtrodden, evilest side of Long Beach.
I thought that my brother and sister's father was my father until I turned 9, until he didn't want to accept me. And then my mother, the way he would treat me, she had to tell me the truth. It kind of broke my heart, but in a way it was kind of like, okay, cool. Because my mother, knowing that I didn't really have my father in my life, she was the number one supporter no matter what I did. When I came to the north side, it was more of a creative environment for me. It was still gangster, it still get evil, still grimy, still murderous, but I found a, conglomerate of brothers. They're called the North Side family. And that's where my love of hip hop and things of that spawned.
There's a lot going on at the time. A lot of street drugs, a lot of gangs and violence. Oh, shit, I was gonna pull up to the slap house. Growing up around here, a lot of us grew up without fathers. So we looked up to guys a couple years older than us. And they wasn't fathers either.
Me and my homeboys raised each other. We all each other's brothers. We all each other's sons. We all got that type of love for each other that we're gonna be there for each other.
They definitely, are a couple brothers that would, help guide me along the way on the street level. And they would project a fatherly type of atmosphere. Definitely develop Christ Bearer in the midst of that North Side family.
You know what? It was the drug era. It affected a lot of people in a lot of bad ways. Especially when you're young, your mind's not developed. People, they think they can handle it, but they can't handle it.
It's a drug that's been around for decades, PCP. But if you think it's old news, think again.
PCP in Long Beach was a norm. It was glamorized to me. I didn't know the good or bad aspect of it, but if you smoke PCP, it was kind of like, it's a dangerous man.
I really don't delve into nothing that's gonna control me. You know what I'm saying? You start messing with stuff to control you, you start getting outside of yourself. And I think that's what happened with Dre.
I've known Nico since childhood. Me and him were both avid hip-hop fans.
We used to freestyle all day long and then go to the open mic at night. And then we ended up making a group and then started really going after it, you know what I'm saying?
At that time, me and Nico were pushing to get on Wu-Tang. I seen Wu-Tang as
especially RZA. I see them as gods on earth.
Most families have a de facto leader, and the undisputed epicenter of the Wu-Tang Clan is RZA.
We met RZA and we formed a bond. He was like, yo, what's the name of your group? We told him North Star. He was like, oh shit, it's a powerful name.
They kind of had my number, stayed on top of me, and really what I felt was like, even though I'm from the East Coast, why not support young brothers coming up from the West Coast? Yeah. It's hoods everywhere. And so this was my chance of helping somebody else from the hood. Alan Grunblatt signed them, and they put a record out, you know what I mean?
The cats keep rushing, a backflip busting, crack your rib, cage your parts, not your heart, that's nothing. Guillotine chop to the Philippines.
It felt like just pushing a wall all your fucking adult life, and then this shit finally moving, and you're like, oh shit, you know? You finally learned the magic words, you know, open sesame, and it's like, I got spoiled, you know what I mean? You know, jumping out of limousines and shit. All in all, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. When I got Wu-Tang, it was kind of like, we didn't even have to pay for anything. So drugs was definitely more accessible, you know what I mean? You did a little bit of PCP, you did a little bit of weed, you drank a little bit, you start getting like $1,000 every other day. You don't do a whole lot of PCP, you don't do a whole lot of weed, you don't drink a whole lot. It got out of control. Mom was sick. She was having epileptic seizures at the time. She had one night, man. I was on the phone with my producer, and I got heard the headboard knocking, and knock. And I'm like, yo, what the fuck? I just called 911. And then 911's coming, I'm trying to do what I'm doing. And then when they get there, she starts breathing, you know? So I was like, fucking, you know, I didn't know what the fuck to do, you know what I mean? And she passed. It was kind of like, shit, you know what? I was like headed down a bottomless vortex, you know what I'm saying? A bottomless vortex, really. I just was not into rap at all. I was like, yo, the hell with that shit. I bumped around doing drugs and everything, and I was fucking going down a spiral. I was like, me, depressed? Never. Because I never cried when mother passed away, you know what I mean? In my neighborhood, depression is like, you know, crying at a Bambi movie and shit. You don't tell nobody you're depressed and shit. When we have mental health issues, we turn to drugs. You know, smoke this, have a drink. Man, you need to get high.
It's like he was in a fight with himself. And I know I go through that type of stuff, like somebody will pass in my life or that mean a lot to me, and I'll close down, you know, and I'll go into a different place. And I think that's what he did. You know what I'm saying? It just had a darker ending.
I end up, you know, deeming that, you know what, I need to have a child to fill this void. I had my first child, and then once I had her, I still carried on with like a lot of the drugs and PCP and flipping out, ranting and raving around the house about I'm God and things of that nature.
Yeah, how'd you get your name?
God, of course. So it was kind of like, oh, divorce was inevitable. And then divorce can be compared to death. So it was like another death. And lose my daughter too, because it was a restraining order that came with the divorce. It was not an amicable split. And then I met Amatullah. I had my second daughter, and it was a fascinating time. But I was still heavy into the drugs, because I started staying up like 4 or 5 nights at a time. We got into an altercation. There was a restraining order on me from her. There was already a restraining order prior from my first wife. And then now this new one lumen, I was like, oh, fuck. I got back into the drugs heavy, and I was fucking up my situation, and the kids that I was producing were, you know, they were really suffering the most.
Around here. Yeah, right there, actually. Take a right. Left right there. It's down there. Yeah, right there.
This is the spot, no question. And yeah, this is the first time I've seen it since the actual night of the occurrence. It was really scary because I was just seeing the cycle being repeated of my father not being in my life. And that's something I swore I would never take part in. was a very crazy night for me. Frustration of not being able to see none of the kids I father was just unbearable because I was in the darkest spot, I think, humanly possible even. We had all indulged in doing the drugs that we did. You know, the party was like here, that high, and everything was just, you know, easy to deal with, although in the back of my mind, all these issues were eating me. I was thinking my interaction with women have been just callous, with no moral code. I said, I will fix this problem that is causing me so much, you know, misery, you know what I mean? That's what I think the insanity kicked in.
I said, yo, my dick is out of control. I need a vasectomy.
I just jumped up out of nowhere. You know, I went to the kitchen. I just went into a blackout mode, I guess, because I can't tell you what type of knife I grabbed. I know it was sufficient. And I grabbed the knife and bam, I pulled down my pants and then all of maybe, you know, that quick. But it was like, oh, like a water hose. I said, hey, I'm pretty much gonna bleed to death. This is pretty much it for me. And I jumped over the balcony.
I thought he was stabbing himself, but this motherfucker went over and called it. That's what
I heard voices at first.
you gotta come get it.
You know, like, I slowly opened my eyes.
Hey, he cut it.
So who are you talking to?
Wait a fucking minute. I'm alive? My heart is still beating like a fucking hammer? You couldn't even imagine this hell right here.
Hey, do you know this guy?
Yeah, we know him, but we can't stop nothing that he's doing, huh?
Okay, I'm sending paramedics to help you now. Stay on the line, I'll tell you exactly what to do next, okay?
They closed the door on me because they were like scared. They were like, yo, this guy's lost it.
I'm not letting his ass in here, dude.
What was a fun trip started turning into, yeah, a nightmare.
This is the worst shit I ever seen in my life.
I just felt the aura of what I had just done. I felt the magnitude of it. It had sunk in. Then the police came and the paramedics came, and then I kind of was sobering up, and I was kind of like, yo, I fucked up, didn't I? He was like, yeah, you fucked up.
I was born a donkey. It's the donkey of the day. Christ bearer, according to the New York Daily News, cut off his penis and then jumped from a 2-story building. I don't know what your life was like before, but I guarantee it was better than it is now. And I'm glad they couldn't reattach your penis because you don't deserve it.
You cut off your penis. Everyone thinks you're a jerk. But the big question now, does it work?
It was nothing I was going to televise. Trust me, that's nothing I was going to be like, hey, guess what, guys? I chopped my dick off. It's only 2 inches. Guess what, baby? Chopped my dick off. Shit's only 2 inches now. No, that wasn't my intention, you know what I mean?
Cutting your own penis off ain't nothing but the devil. Wu-Tang should be embarrassed, and he has to change his name from Christ Bearer immediately, because he don't know Jesus.
Dude, have you talked to Christ Bearer since the incident?
Oh, nah, man.
No? Will he still be affiliated with you guys, or like you still be working together on some music or stuff, or?
Man, it's hard to predict what's gonna happen to Christ, but man, all I do is say we got our prayers out for.
That was a lot of bullshit, you know what I mean? To me, they're gonna put whatever they can out there to make a story.
It was difficult as fuck, having to deal with a lot of people talking.
You know how you get that negative press that you kind of clam up for a while? You know, I think that's what point he went to.
I chopped off more than my fair share of my penis. When I'm actually having the actual act of sex, I'm not like, oh, I wish I had my shit. I'm like totally, I'm in there like I used to be, you know what I mean?
Moving forward, I know it ain't like he's crazy or, you know, that's an incident that happened, but he's still a human being and that's my brother, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I didn't realize I was depressed. Due to that macho air, no one even notices they are going through a depression of a difficult time, you know what I mean? Because no one would care if you said it.
What I learned, a lot of people out here haven't been diagnosed, so they don't even know what they're suffering from. So you can't fight a fight if you don't know what fight you're in.
Drugs and depression in hip hop should be looked upon more seriously. Because I think that you got a lot of young artists now, and they do a lot of lean and all this other drugs, and it's definitely got to do with a slight state of some type of depression, you know what I mean?
We hide behind drugs. We hide behind liquor. We hide behind other women, right? Instead of being a father.
Family is everything to me, man. I can't blame anything that is bad in my life or wrong on anybody else. I gotta really accept the reality that I have made some choices that were not right.
All right.
After I had the incident, all of my baby's mothers showed up. It was a beautiful day.
We were both at the bottom at the time, so the plan was we need to make sure all of this mess is straightened up and we just build a solid foundation. So whatever it's gonna take, we're willing to do.
I realized that LA is a heavy town, and I always knew this when I was a kid, but it had got extremely heavy. I just knew I wanted to go get a fresh start, because I know traveling does great things for the mind. So I came out to Vegas. I'm in a position where I'm able to work on some new music after actually experiencing depression and never thinking that there was no better time than now. When I was in the hospital, they appointed me a psychiatrist. She was the greatest. I needed her right before the incident happened, you know what I mean? Shit really helps, you know, when you get the right one. There's a slight depression I still battle with, you know what I mean? And that depression is not seeing my daughter. I still have a restraining order, one of my daughters. Although I've seen her since, but there's been some conflict since then. But I have my wife and my daughter, Lana. She's by my side. Every morning I wake up, I'm teaching her the ABCs, 1, 2, 3s of life.